Hello and welcome. I'm Millicent Walker. Tonight, former Attorney General Mohammed Adoke writes Interpol seeking his release from the UAE, where he's been in detention since November 11. Speaker of the Taraba State House of Assembly, Peter Daya, resigns his position, citing personal reasons. Federal government reopens Kara Burger access of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, which has been partially closed since September. And British Prime Minister Boris Johnson says 74 terror prisoners who were released early will have their licence conditions reviewed. The former Attorney General of the Federation, Mr. Mohammed Adoke, is battling to regain his freedom from detention in the United Arab Emirates, where he has been held since November the 11th. Mr. Adoke has written the General Secretariat of Interpol in France to demand his release. In a letter dated November 28, Mr. Adoke described his arrest as political persecution by the administration of President Muhammadu Buhari and an abuse of court orders. Meanwhile, Mr. Adoke has asked a federal high court in Abuja to strike out his name from the OPL 245 case filed by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, EFCC. In an application filed by his counsel, Mr. Mike Ezekweme, the former AGF said it is erroneous to include his name as a defendant in the suit when the Federal High Court in Abuja had already exonerated him from the matter. The former Minister of Justice said a ruling delivered by Justice Binta Nyako of the Federal High Court on April the 13th, 2019, stated that he could not be held liable for carrying out lawful presidential orders in the $1.2 billion Malibu deal. He accused the EFCC of concealing the fact of the case from the court. The application is scheduled for hearing on December the 2nd. Now, what's good for the goose should be good for the gander. And that appears to be the message that human rights lawyer Mr. Femi Falana is sending to the federal government when it comes to obeying court orders. Mr. Falana, a senior advocate of Nigeria, is accusing the federal government of disobeying valid court orders in Nigeria while it complies with orders from Britain. A British commercial court had ordered a deposit of $200 million while granting a stay of execution for a $9.6 billion judgment awarded against Nigeria in favor of Process and Industrial Development, P&ID Limited, and the country's Attorney General, Abubakar Malami, confirmed on Thursday that a $200 million bond deposit was made following the approval by President Muhammadu Buhari. In a letter to the AGF on Sunday, Mr. Falana said the federal government did not give any precondition before obeying the court of its former colonial master as it does at home. Is therefore asking the federal government to comply with court orders and release Mr. Moale Sowore, convener of the Revolution Now movement. According to him, if the AGF fails to accede to his request, he will be left with no option than to pursue the contempt proceedings, which have been initiated against the Director General of the DSS, Mr. Yusuf Bichi, as well as report the AGF and the prosecutor to the Nigerian Bar Association and the Legal Practitioners Privileges Committee for encouraging the State Security Service to treat orders of Nigerian courts with disdain while obeying the orders of British courts. Elsewhere, the crisis rocking the Taraba State House of Assembly has taken a new twist. Now, as the Speaker of the House, Mr. Peter Daya has resigned his position as Leader of the House. Mr. Daya, who's representing Mbamga constituency for the 5th time, is the longest-serving legislator in the House. Confirming his resignation to journalists in Jalingo on Sunday, Mr. Daya says he resigned on personal reasons. He was elected the 8th Speaker at Taraba State House of Assembly following the inauguration of the 8th Assembly in June 2015 and was re-elected Speaker in April 2016 after the declaration for a rerun election in his constituency by the Court of Appeal sitting in Yola. With just 30 days to the end of the year, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, is asking Nigerians to be expectant of good tidings. Professor Osinbajo expressed this optimism at the end of the year Thanksgiving service at the Aso Villa Chapel in Abuja. After the service, the Vice President told State House correspondents that Nigerians have a lot to be grateful for and should continue to have an attitude of gratitude while expecting more blessings from God. Our State House correspondent, Kayla Megwa, has this report.
Will be full of joy, full of prosperity, full of abundance, in the mighty name of the Lord Jesus.
Prayer, worship, and praise. That was the mood at the Aso Villa Chapel as parishioners celebrated the annual Thanksgiving service.
That's anyone that told Nebuchadnezzar, you are competing with me. I will show you what I have. It's going to be alive in this nation.
It's been a relatively peaceful relationship between the executive and the legislature in 2019, a situation many Nigerians have frowned at. However, members of both arms of government believe Nigerians have a lot to be grateful for.
Keeping our president alive, hale and healthy, ensuring that there's unity between the executive arm and the legislative arm, and we've been working in collaboration, moving this country forward, and generally just being alive. Yes, we have every reason to thank to God.
As a matter of fact, for Nigeria being one country today, we ought to be very, very grateful to God. We have had our own share of challenges, insecurity, in different forms and facets, but God has sustained us.
Vice President Professor Yemi Osinbajo is also convinced there's an abundance ahead as the year winds down.
Well, my message is found in the scriptures. Psalm 65 verse 11 tells us that God is going to crown this year, the end of this year, with his goodness and with his abundance. And he'll give us the fatness of the land in the mighty name of the Lord Jesus. So I believe very strongly that God is going to bless this land and prosper this land.
Tumultuous as 2019 has been for many, Nigerians will do well to count their blessings and keep hope alive for an even more prosperous new year. Kayla Magwa, Channels Television News.
And the Bishop of the Benin Catholic Archdiocese, Most Reverend Augustine Akabueze, is appealing to the Edo State Governor, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, and the Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Mr. Adams Oshiomhole, to set aside their differences and make peace. The cleric, who was speaking during a Thanksgiving service in Benin City, says the lingering crisis at the Edo State House of Assembly is not in the interest of anyone. The Speaker of the Edo State House of Assembly, Mr. Frank Okiye, who was also at the service, said that the House is ready for an amicable resolution.
The general populace does not benefit from conflicts. Political leaders do not benefit from conflicts. It distracts them and makes them less efficient in working for the people who have elected them. Therefore, we call on all political leaders who are involved in the crisis going on in Edo State to beat their swords into brooding groups. Let there be an end to the various factions and suspensions of leaders. Our leaders must know that they owe it to the electorate to speak and comport themselves as elders whom we look up to. Overheating the political system for personal gains must stop. I appeal to both Governor Obaseki and former Governor of Edo State, Comrade Adams Oshiomhole, to break down the walls of division and come together to work for the good of the people of Edo State.
The purpose of our, giving up ourselves for election is to serve the state, and we have lost about 6 months now without their constituencies being represented. It has created enormous pressure on those of us that have agreed to come up at this time, that we now carry on the job of 24. Of course, naturally, it's not going to be easy. So I want to appeal to them to come up come and complete their documentation, and then come up for inauguration. The government is one. Edo State is one. And our services to them must be anchored on this principle of delivering the service to Edo State people. It doesn't have to be who is blowing the whistle from the corner. It's not going to help us as a people. So I appeal to them. They are my friends. I've always said the issues are not really, and we're never among the members of the House. They were what you found that have divided us were externally prompted. Before the inauguration, we were talking as one. We were sitting together on the day of inauguration. We were talking to ourselves. The phone calls are there, and it was very clear. They are still my friends. We meet every day, we hug, we eat together, we drink together. But why have we decided not to come out just for the service of Edo State? Because people are blowing whistles from different corners. And that has not helped us, and it will not help us.
And to more politics, most of those who have been commenting and carpeting the agitation for restructuring the Nigerian Federation do not know what the concept is about. That's the view of elder statesman and Afenifere chieftain, Chief Ayo Adebanjo. Chief Adebanjo told Channels Television's Ladia Keridoluale on our current affairs program Newsnight that those also suggesting constitutional amendments through the National Assembly are missing the point.
When we talk of restructuring, it doesn't appear that people even understand what it means. Restructuring is not a political philosophy. It's to restructure to get back to federalism. And federalism has no special meaning. There is nothing like true federalism. It is because Nigeria is running a unitary form of government and calling it federalism that people now want real federalism, they want true federalism. Federalism has no qualification. It has its own tenets. It has its own provisos. It has everything. That is why those of us who love Nigeria and want to keep it one insisted that we want federalism. And why? Our political history shows it. Before we had independence, Shifaulo has written a book on path to Nigerian freedom, making it clear that this country of multivarious religion, culture, ethnicity, it can't be run under a unitary form of government. He wrote that book in 1947. When we made the 2014 conference, people said, no, you must go to referendum. There's no referendum in the Constitution. They're asking us to go to this Constitution that we are complaining about. I said, what logic? The National Assembly you ask us to go to, they are part of the problem we have solved.
For the full interview with Chief Adebanjo, do watch Newsnight tomorrow, Monday, December the 2nd, 2019 at 9 p.m. only on Channels Television. Now, about 90 days after a partial closure of the Kara-Berger part of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway for construction, the road has now been reopened to traffic. The Federal Ministry of Work says construction work on the inward Lagos section of the road has been completed, while work on the outbound Lagos section is expected to resume January 2020. The reopening of the road was done earlier today to ease the flow of traffic on the highway, especially as the festive period approaches.
The news of the partial closure of the inbound and outbound traffic from Kara and Berger axis of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway came as a bitter pill for motorists and commuters to swallow. The effect of the construction work has been a long stretch of gridlock, oftentimes round the clock, while traffic managers try their best to bring sanity.
Very frustrating, my brother. Very.
Spelled out alternative routes may have not given the necessary ease. According to the Director, Federal Highways Southwest, Funcho Adebiyi, major construction works on the highway is to be completed latest by December 15. But that changed as the deadline drew close.
We just hope that we're already getting towards the end of the rainy season. So once it continues like this, then we should be able to finish that inbound Lagos. And then at the end of the day, once it's completed, rather than putting our people under very serious stress, we open both lanes.
December 1st, barricades are removed, reopening the inbound Lagos traffic on Kara-Berger axis of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. The ministry says construction on the inbound traffic has been completed, while work in the outbound section returns in January 2020. There are expected heavy flow of traffic during the Yuletide, but with the barricades on the outbound traffic section, motorists may be in a long travel time out of Lagos. Loretta Chiogo, Channels Television News.
In part two, after the break, we have the man with the insights into the reopening of the Kara-Berger axis of the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and its implications for travelers during the festive period. And that's the Federal Controller of Works, Lagos. That's in a moment.